Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Deep Daily Editorial Enrichment Program of La Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 21st May 2019. The first editorial for discussion today is Yemen's woes. So, when you see the problem in Yemen, we have to understand it from country specific dimension and also regional dimension. So, when we talk about the regional dimension, Iran and Saudi Arabia are in a bitter conflict in the region. On the other side, Yemen as a country was ruled by a regime which consists of Sunnis. Obviously, the Sunnis are getting the support from, the regime is getting the support from Saudi Arabia. And the rebels in Yemen are Houthis. Houthis are a Shia related faction. These Houthi rebels, they are getting the support from Iran. And the Sana'a, capital of Yemen, it was fallen into the hands of the Houthi rebels. Now, Saudi Arabia started indiscriminate bombing on the Houthi occupied territories. Finally, there was a ceasefire agreement. In this context, recently, Saudi claimed that its oil pipeline was bombed by a drone which is launched by Houthi rebels. In retaliation to this, Saudi Arabia started bombing the Sana'a again. It means that the proxy war between Iran and the Saudi Arabia is getting reflected in Yemen. The second part of this, the humanitarian crisis due to the blockade which was imposed by Saudi Arabia is leading to disproportionate loss of life. There is hunger everywhere and there is valuable loss of life in the country. In this context, what this article says is in Yemen, the country has to move back to the ceasefire. The blockade has to end. The regional politics, real politics between Saudi Arabia and Iran, the proxy war between them shall not affect the Yemenis and ceasefire shall continue. That is what is the hope it is trying to expect. The case against war on Iran. So you know that P5 plus 1 countries, permanent 5 plus 1 countries, that is P5 plus Germany, they came into a deal with Iran, which is popularly known as JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is also known as Iran nuclear deal. Now, what is the major point? Iran has to stop its nuclear program. P5 plus 1, they will give relief from economic sanctions to Iran. Now, the Trump administration which has come up, it has unilaterally moved away from the Iran nuclear deal. Now, Iran has demanded European Union, who are the parties to this deal, to continue with the economic relief so that it can sustain. But European Union till now did not take any steps which are comprehensive. In this article, this analyzes what is the existing situation in the region. So, Strait of Hormuz is one of the important thing which we need to learn over here. So, through the Strait of Hormuz, almost one third of the LNG and 20% of the crude travels. So, this is critical energy line in the world. So, Iran sits at this strait and it has all might to close down this particular Strait of Hormuz. And the third thing is United States of America, it has launched USS Abraham Lincoln over there, placed it over there. And second, recently there was attack on two oil tankers close to UAE and also oil pipeline of Saudi Arabia. Now it has been stated that Iran was behind this, though Iran has condemned that attack and it has unequivocally stated that it is no way behind the attack. Here, when we see West Asia, there are three axes of power. One is Iran, the second is Saudi Arabia, the third is Israel. So, the Saudi Arabia and Israel have the strong backing of the Trump administration. And Iran is involved with a proxy war at many places with Saudi Arabia. We can see this proxy war in Yemen between Houthi rebels and the regime over there. The regime was supported by Saudi Arabia, Houthi rebels were supported by the Iran. And the next part of this is Hezbollah and in Lebanon and then Hamas in Palestine All these have the strong support of the Iran. These are considered as regional militia groups by the United States of America. So US considers Iran as a rogue nation for its support to Hezbollah, Hamas and also Houthi rebels, etc. In this context, what this article is trying to say is the deepening of conflict through US military action in this region can lead to multiple conflicts. So, why? It is like a chain reaction. So, in this context, that Iran is not like Iraq, it is not like Afghanistan. Iran is a very strong nation in this region, and Iran has a strong support of these all militias. They get activated. And second part, Iran do not deserve this action. Why? Iran on its part is fulfilling all its commitments as per the JCPOA. And the second thing is, if US goes to war, P5 plus 1 will may not support the United States of America because European Union still shows its loyalty to the Iran nuclear deal. And it is the Trump administration which has unilaterally moved out of it without any proper consultation to the European Union. And third, United States of America is not always a winning country. So if you see recently in Syria, so though it wants to topple the regime of Mr. Assad, it failed to do so. And George Bush has clearly stated that he will haunt every terrorist in this world. Even after these 17 years of the war, till still Al Qaeda is alive. ISIS has come into existence, which was not existing before, and in many parts of the world, United States of America is trying to move away. It wants to withdraw its troops by saving its face. So, in this context, the US military might be due to its technology, but it is not always making it to win the wars. So, in this context, again, anything or any unilateral action against Iran, either it is military or non military action, it will destabilize the region further. What are the consequences for India? Obviously, we are dependent heavily on this region for our energy needs. So, our crude is coming from there. In this context, any further instability will lead to economic crisis in India. And the next, eye on the monsoons. You know, in India, monsoons are a measure of wealth. Better the monsoons are, better is the wealth. But we use the word vagaries of monsoons. It means they are inadequate, sometimes are they are unequally distributed across the regions in the country. Today, pollution is a major reason why the monsoon vagaries are increasing. And the second is the groundwater depletion is clearly stated. Almost 50% of the groundwater got depleted in the last decade. So, in this context, as our agricultural economy is dependent on these monsoons, addressing the pollution is an immediate need. And the next is whatever the water which is coming in the form of rains, it shall be used to recharge the wells and then protect the wetlands and also to provide for a proper and well mannered irrigation. It means in India the cropping pattern is water extensive. We need to be careful, rationalize in the use of the water. So here the word used is commodity approach. So we are taking a commodity approach to manage the water. Now we have to see the water as an essential need and essential resource, and the approach has to change. When we see it as a commodity approach, we try to see it as buying water, selling water kind of methodology. Through a market mechanism, we want to solve the problem. But as it is an essential resource, once this resource gets exhausted, human life cannot survive. That's why state has to take a primary responsibility rather than just following the commodity approach towards managing the water in this country. Moral ambiguity on Rohingyas. You know that Rohingya Muslims, these are citizens of Myanmar, but these are called as stateless citizens. Why? Myanmar did not recognize them as their citizens. So these people live majorly in a state called Rakhine State. and these people are the victims of state persecution. So, Myanmar and the Rakhine state and the problem of Rohingyas, we have to see it from two dimensions from Indian perspective. One is in relation with Bangladesh, the other one is in relation with China. Once, when military junta was ruling Myanmar, the regime was very close to China, and India was facing security threat from there. But soon, military junta realized that China is not a very trustworthy ally, and then over dependence on China is not good for their sovereignty. Along with that, the democratization also has started in Myanmar. Aung San Suu Kyi and party led by her has formed the government. So it means today a democratic regime is ruling in Myanmar. But does all the powers belong to the democratic regime? No. Most of the powers, defense, law and order, all these belongs to the military even today. And the next is Bangladesh dimension. So these Rohingya Muslims were believed to be originally habitating Bangladesh. So that's why whenever there was a kind of violence in the state, these people started migrating to Bangladesh. Like that 1 million plus refugees today settled in Bangladesh. And few refugees also have come to India. So, what is the stand India is taking? When Prime Minister Modi visited Myanmar in 2017, he did not express or sympathize with the refugee crisis and the humanitarian crisis going on in the Rakhine state. And second, in India, Myanmar refugees, that is Rohingyas, these are being seen as immigrants, illegal immigrants who have to be returned to their country, who have to be sent back. And security reasons are stated for this. It means we don't want to provide any home for these refugees. And the second, we are insensitive to that. In this, we have to see two dimensions, real politic and the moral dimension. India's respect in the global geopolitics, the reason is India was always a moral preacher. India stood for the principles rather than the real politics. But today, in our international affairs, real politics is dominating over the moral principles. It means India has a long border with Myanmar, and securing that border is the primary objective of India. And the second one, India do not want Myanmar to move close to China again. And the third thing, India is today the largest suppliers of arms to the Myanmar. Previously, it was China. And the fourth thing, UN Human Rights Council has also objected the Myanmar's ways of treatment to the Rohingya refugees. UN has sent a fact-finding mission and it has clearly exposed the human rights violations in the country. But India did not acknowledge any UN action, UN reports over there. And the next, there is a demand that the matter of genocide of the Rohingyas shall be taken to International Criminal Court. Neither the Myanmar nor India are signatories of Rome Statute, which has brought in International Criminal Court. So that's why India did not take any stand on this particular matter. So this is about the Rohingya crisis. Here what author says is India stood to the principles all through after independence. Today, it is showing a blind eye to the humanitarian crisis on its backyard is not good for its stature among the global politics. Why the BJP is not invincible in Uttar Pradesh? Now let me state Ambedkar's opinion. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has clearly stated that the protection to minorities from the majority will come from the very composition of the majority and divides among them. According to him, Hindus are not a single faction, cannot become one solidarity group or one single group. The reason is there are many caste divisions among this, and these caste divisions will place one against the other. On the other hand, the minorities can become a consolidated group. So that way they can get their representation in Indian politics. But today, everywhere we can see disenfranchisement of the Muslims. It means that the number of representatives for the minorities are decreasing. And the second, violence against the minority has increased. And the next, the caste divides among the Hindus, which were supposed to protect the minorities, are getting consolidated. So here, upper caste and also non-Yadavas and non-Jatavas. So non-Yadavas, because Yadavas are the strong vote bank for the Samajwadi Party, Jatavas are the strong vote bank for the BSP. So non-Yadavas, non-Jatavas among the backward classes and upper caste have got consolidated, and it has given the power to BJP in 2014 and later in the assembly elections that have followed. But today, after its failure to deliver on its promises of development, slowly the people are disenchanted with it. And then the social justice and secularism alliance is coming into the forefront. In this context, BSP and SP alliance or Mahagathbandhan is trying to stand to the might of the BJP. So it means the concerns of the social justice and concerns of the secularism are challenging the might of the BJP in UP. That is the essence of this article. At the end of the day, either we are talking about the BJP or BSP SP combination, identity politics still stands central to the Indian elections. And the next, a jibe that marked a new low in electoral politics. Decency and decorum. These are the virtues of the erstwhile leaders. Either we talk about Advani or Vajpayee, to that matter, Indira Gandhi. All these have spoke about decency in the politics. But today, if we see the election campaigning that happened recently, the jibe at opposition leaders, leaders who served the country and who got the Bharat Ratna, and taking them into the midst of electoral controversies was the most unexpected according to this article. But let's not get into the politics of this, but let us see this way. So every country has to respect its past leadership, has to identify with their vision and mission. So we may differ with their ideologies, but we shall respect them as the personalities. That's how the statesmen run the countries. But in India, we have more politicians today rather than the statesmen. This is what today's deep analysis is. Finally, thank you very much. Have a good day. All the best.